safer now than we have ever been.
Liar!
You have no idea what you're in for.
Miles couldn't bear to watch the trial in person, but instead did camouflage in Times Square. Conflicted that he is now the only Spider-Man and that he was partially responsible for the events that led to Peter's demise, Miles knows this is the right thing to do and that he must carry on the fight as Spider-Man. Of course, J. Jonah Jameson has a heyday going through that Spider-Man had been arrested, but he quickly loses listeners that instead join the Danicast for a calmer, more positive viewing of Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Mayor Norman Osborn rests in his penthouse, boiling with rage. The death of his son, Peter revealing himself to be Spider-Man. He's never been so angry yet so alone. He heads into his secret lab where he receives a test result of a secret experimental treatment method he had designed for Harry. It's a serum that is said to make one feel younger, move faster, and possess near superhuman strength. With all the stress of knowing that New York will be a little less safe and that this could lead to him losing the next election, he decides that he can be the first human test subject for this new treatment. All with good intentions, Norman doesn't want to have another father go through the pain he suffered. Unfortunately, when he takes the serum, he didn't read the notes about the inconclusive results on cognitive health, or even that of a split personality. Norman then looks at the prototype hand grenades that are stored in his secret lab. With MJ being the only one who knew about them, no one is able to warn New York City of the dangers that are about to arrive. Miles continues being the lone Spider-Man for some time, stopping common criminals from petty theft or assaults on the street. One day he receives a call from Genki that Oscorp is planning on running a train shipment containing rare and potentially dangerous materials from retired experiments, some involved with the symbiote project. Willing to give it protection in case of any bad actors, Miles waits for the train to depart that night before following it on its expected path. All seems quiet until a maniacal laugh fills the atmosphere. A small purple bomb drops from the sky in front of the train track, causing it to derail and crash. With no security on board, Miles would have to defend the ambush all by himself. Expecting a large crowd to appear, there is no one, until a man flying a glider swoops down from above. The figure is wearing a green outfit to go with the goblin-looking mask, letting Miles know this is not someone to take lightly. The two battle it out for a few minutes, with the goblin being able to catch Miles off guard with a sneakily thrown hand grenade, exploding and knocking Miles to the ground. The goblin takes this as his chance to hijack whatever he was looking for on board the train. He's quick in knowing the container it's in. Once he finds it, he removes his mask, revealing his face to Miles, seeing that it is Norman Osborn. Miles then realizes that the container Norman is holding possesses a red goo very similar in physical properties to the black symbiote that Peter was wearing. Norman, smirking evilly, looks at Miles and says, "Godspeed, Spider-Man," before smashing the container open and causing the red symbiote to take over his body. It quickly infuses with his green armor, turning Norman into a red symbiote goblin monster. Letting out another devious laugh, Norman jumps back on his glider and races off with his new prize. Knowing he had just lost what he thought was a simple night, Miles is quick to inform his mother and Genki about his new nemesis, the Red Goblin. Swinging back towards Harlem, Miles will attempt to call Rio Morales to tell her to stay inside where it is safe. While calling her, the line is disconnected, followed by a series of explosions that are in the direction of the raft. The Red Goblin has cut most of the city's power lines, leaving mostly fire and smoke to fill the air. The man who was once the mayor that fought to keep New York safe from political office has now turned it into a devilish playground. With the knowledge that the Red Goblin is Norman, and with his quick judgment in thinking Peter was responsible for the death of Harry, Miles knows that the explosions were a warning that he was soon coming for the other Spider-Man. The one that had a collar on his neck had depowered him to that of a regular human, meaning he wouldn't stand a chance. Miles races over as fast as he can, being sure to grab a little something that he knows will help him in the short future. Arriving at the raft, it is still in ruins from Peter's symbiote tirade, thankfully. Miles quickly makes his way down to the level where Peter, Otto, Electro, and the other villains are housed. Miles passes by each of his predecessor's former adversaries, all giving menacing stares. He then stumbles upon Peter, who he finds with his head down and his eyes closed against the back wall of his cell. Ready to lead with a heated approach, Miles hesitates when he hears the slight crying of Peter. "This is all my fault," he says. "I'm so sorry, Spider-Man." Knowing that he doesn't have time for sob stories, Miles tells him that the explosions are that of a Norman Osborn that fused with another symbiote, but one making him even more thirsty for carnage than Peter had. He makes it clear that Norman is out for revenge and will waste no time trying to kill Peter. "You can either die in here or throw this on and die trying with me," Miles reveals to Peter, his white spider suit, fully repaired and upgraded since the night he was arrested. "I know you're hurting, Pete, but I need you. I need Spider-Man to help me save the city." Miles opens Peter's cell, breaks his restraints, and allows for Peter to quickly change back into Spider-Man. Norman makes his way quickly through the raft, looking for Peter's cell. Once he stumbles to the bottom, he finds nothing but a broken collar, restraint, and an empty bag. Enraged, he looks around at the superpowered villains and immediately breaks down the doors. "You've all just been drafted, except you," Norman states, looking at Otto, who still remained in his cell. Still despising Norman for all the work he stole, Otto will attempt to tease the Carnage monster, but Norman takes none of this as he slams Otto against his cell wall, dropping the concrete above him, ending his former colleague's life. The villains of Rhino, Electro, and Scorpion are all prepared to enter the fight, with their objective being to kill the Spider-Man. After saving many civilians and helping put out the fires, the Spider-Men tell law enforcement that they need to get everyone off the streets as it will be their battlefield. The police look at Peter awkwardly as if he's supposed to be in a cell, to which he snarkily says, "Don't worry, I'm going right back in there once all this is taken care of." Suddenly, a wave of electricity fills the air, accompanied by a powerful shake of the ground. Down the street, the two Spider-Men observe Electro, Rhino, and Scorpion all emerging from the shadows, ready to take the Spider-Man head on. Miles and Peter both look at each other, knowing Miles can handle Electro and Peter can take on Rhino and Scorpion. The fight between Miles and Electro doesn't last long, with Miles' unique spider powers. He quickly webs up Electro to have him be taken back into police custody. Before doing so, Miles is able to siphon a large amount of electricity from Electro, seemingly losing about 90% of his overall power. On the other hand, Peter is struggling between Scorpion and Rhino. Being without his powers for about a month, he's slowly regaining his strength. Rhino slams him into a nearby jewelry store. Trying to crack one more joke before taking another blow, Miles appears with a powerful electric slam into the ground, knocking out Scorpion but only weakening Rhino. Demonstrating his mastery over his powers, Miles quickly works through Rhino, leaving both in a state for the authorities to take over. Regrouping with Peter, he realizes how proud he was to have Miles as another Spider-Man and that he never should have pushed him away. Their moment is short-lived as more explosions are set up along the coastline of the island. This is where Norman's intentions were revealed. He wants to drown Manhattan by destroying all the harbors around the city, flushing everyone towards Central Park so that he can stand atop Oscorp Tower to watch it all go down. Peter and Miles are quick to catch on to this, but they can't be everywhere at once. As they struggle to slow down the destruction as much as possible, several advanced aircraft enter the airspace. It's Silver Sable and her bandits fully equipped and armored to help with the wall crawlers. She greets Peter by saying, "I still owe you one." Sable explains to the two that she can take the ground level from here, and for Miles and Peter to rush to the Oscorp Tower to fight Norman, who has only grown more attached to the Carnage symbiote. The two will take him on in the stormy night, dodging all of his symbiote powered abilities. Miles shares with Peter that he equipped his suit with the sonic grenades that he used against him during their confrontation at the raft, but to only use them if he's got a clean shot. Red Goblin and the Spider-Man will trade blows with each other, both causing cuts, bruises, and broken bones. With his powers nearly returned to full strength, Peter will bait Norman into taking him one-on-one, being a distraction for Miles to shoot his bioelectricity at him. While in close hand-to-hand combat, the Red Goblin summons a symbiote knife and is able to strike Peter with it. Unknowing to Norman, this was the plan, as Peter quickly grabs him in close as Miles unleashes a powerful wave of blue electricity to surround the heroes and the Goblin. Then Peter activates the sonic grenade, which is upgraded in power due to the surrounding electric environment. It explodes, sending Peter back down into the roof and Norman off of his glider. Miles, still at decent fighting strength, lands next to Norman and lands a barrage of electric punches, destroying the Carnage symbiote piece by piece. In a flash, Norman's unmanned glider crashes into the rooftop of Oscorp Tower, causing all the grenades to ignite and incinerating the rooftop. Miles sees Peter too weak to get to his feet and decides to act quickly. Wanting to make sure that Norman can't recover quick enough, he plants a web grenade on his back, exploding just as he leaps to Peter. Grabbing Peter to get him out of the way, Miles then looks back to see Norman crawling towards the Crimson symbiote. Quickly webbing him out of the way of the fire, Miles then leaps to secure the Carnage symbiote in another container, ending the crusade of the Red Goblin. The aftermath of the conflict reassures the people of New York that the Spider-Man will always be around to save the day. Norman was exposed for all of his secret experiments and quickly outcast and thrown into the raft. While assisting with cleanup, Peter as Spider-Man was approached by a blind man offering legal services and giving him a business card that read Nelson and Murdoch. This proved to pay great dividends, as lawyer Matthew Murdoch was able to use the recent events and convince a judge to commute Peter's sentence with a few conditions, giving him a path for redemption and to continue being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Miles would talk to his mother to see if they would be comfortable letting Peter live with them, convincing that there was still good in him and to give him a second chance. With a full dinner table of Peter, Miles, Genki, and Rio Morales, they would all celebrate, only to have police sirens go off outside the apartment. Peter and Miles look at each other with a quick smile for a brief moment before standing up, switching into their spider suits, and jumping out the window, swinging together as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.